Mikal Bridges, have yourself a game. 114 to 113 win for the Knicks. Mikal Bridges buzzer beater late at night in overtime on the West Coast in Portland. Huge game to get into, including Mikal calling Tibs out on minutes during the day. So we're going to talk about all that and more right now on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, welcome in to Locked On Knicks. I'm Alex Wolf. I'm editor-in-chief of Knicks site, The Strickland, which you can find at thestrick.land, talking about a big 114 to 113 win over Portland for the Knicks in Portland. Mikal Bridges game winner. We're going to talk about Mikal's night in the first segment, talk about some minutes talk that he had with Tibs and let reporters know about, which was interesting, and how that translated to this game. We'll talk about some of the great performances down the stretch. Karl-Anthony Towns, both on offense and defense, doing some really great stuff late. Deuce McBride with some big blocks of Scoot Henderson late in this game. And then talk about some tactical mishaps that almost cost the Knicks this game. They were up 6 with about a minute left off of a couple of cat makes, and then managed to almost choke it away. And luckily, Mikal Bridges came there like Superman with that final play of the game to win them this one. But first, I wanted to thank you all for making Locked On Knicks your first listen today and every day, whether you're checking us out on your favorite podcast platform or taking in the sights and sounds on YouTube. We appreciate you making us part of your daily routine. Make sure you hit that auto download function on your favorite podcast app or the notification bell on YouTube so you never miss an episode. And if that's not enough for you, your favorite podcast now has a newsletter. Introducing the Locked On Knicks Daily Newsletter, one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com, and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Knicks newsletter. So let's get right into this one. The Knicks down 2 with 3.5 seconds to go, off of some tactical mishaps, you might say. Right before that, Josh Hart moves on an inbounds play and gets called for it. Not always called in the NBA, but that just because they don't always call that, or they don't always call traveling, or they don't always call something as a foul or whatever, does not mean that you have carte blanche to just do it and not get called for it. So Hart shuffled his feet very obviously on the inbounds play, trying to get the ball in late in the game with the Knicks up by a point, and instead turns the ball over. The Blazers get the ball back. Denny Avdija goes up, makes a shot and one, gets the Blazers up by 2. The Knicks only need a 2 to tie, but 3.5 seconds to go. Mikal Bridges gets it to Josh Hart off the inbound, past half court, and then Hart hands it off to Mikal. And Mikal pulls up right in Donovan Clingan's face, who I don't think was the most comfortable all the way out on the perimeter there. But Mikal still has to alter his shot, and it goes in right at the buzzer. Mikal Bridges wins the game for the New York Knicks, ends the game with 33 points, 13 of 21 field goals, 2 of 4 from 3, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal, a block. This was a real back and forth affair. This had, I think, the most lead changes in the NBA this season or something like that. I think I saw the stat. Lots and lots of lead changes. There's like over 40 of them, if I'm not mistaken. So real back and forth game, if there ever was one. The Knicks were kind of stuck in mud for parts of this game. They definitely didn't get up a ton of threes, which sort of hamstrung them a little bit. They got outshot and outmade by the Blazers in this one. 17 of 42 from 3 for the Blazers, 12 of 31 for the Knicks. So shot 11 less and made 5 less. And that's not going to help you. That's a 15-point hole that you got to make up somehow. Luckily, Mikal Bridges was out there as the mid-range maestro to kind of pick up the slack there. His mid-range shot was just going crazy. It was pretty necessary. Donovan Clingan is definitely for real. I think he is the real deal in terms of a rim protecting big. I think that they've done a really good job in getting him on the team. I really liked Clingan going into this past year's draft. So, shouts to Portland for identifying what a talent he is. I mean, I don't think that he's ever going to be a full-on superstar player that you're tent poling your whole team around, but definitely a great defender. And I think that he showed that in this game. The Knicks were definitely a little bit, I don't want to say scared, but cautious around the inside, thanks to the presence that he had there. And that made it kind of necessary to have like a Mikal Bridges out there who could hit from mid range and really work that area. It would have been nice to see them maybe create a few more threes, but the Blazers, to their credit too, also have some really athletic wing defenders, which made it more difficult to get clean looks on the outside. Like, they were swarming on their defense. Like, credit to them, to the Blazers. Like, they've built a solid young core. I think Chauncey Billups has them playing really hard. I think that they're progressing. I think like Scoot Henderson is getting better and starting to look more like the top 2 pick that he was. And Kamara is like a really, really good role player. Klingon, I think, is really solid. Obviously, on most nights, you might get a little bit more out of Simons. I don't know why his name just escaped me for a moment there. Anthony Simons. You might get more out of him on any given night, but I mean, he's obviously a very talented young player. Shaden Sharp was playing really well. Denny Avdia, who they got basically as like a salary dump, had 27, 15, and 5 in this game. So, I mean, they did well. They definitely did well for what it was, but the Knicks ultimately come out on top in this one, thanks to Mikal Bridges. I mean, I just think this is the guy that you traded for, right? Like, this was more akin to like his Brooklyn self, I think. This is more what you expect out of a guy that you watched be a number one option in Brooklyn. And like, as Knicks fans, we kind of got a front row seat to a lot of that because the Knicks play Brooklyn a lot. And Mikal had some really good games against the Knicks the last couple of years prior to this in a Brooklyn uniform. And I think we were just sort of looking for that aggressive streak for a lot of the season. And, without Brunson now, and then in this game, obviously, like, Hart didn't play uh, super well. So, you need to make up for some points there. OG played well, like, process wise, but wasn't shooting super great. I mean, he was 8 of 20 for the whole game. So, but still was giving you what you needed there. Cat only took 12 field goals in this game. Like, just kind of weird because, like, I mean, he was 8 of 12 and I'll talk about that in a minute, but just kind of odd to not be trying to feed him a little more. I do think that the interior D of, of Portland and being able to kind of leave Klingon as the floating guy definitely hurt some of the guys on the Knicks a bit in terms of being able to get inside and make something happen there. And I think that had something to do with Hart being out there in certain scenarios, but we'll talk about that in a minute too. But from the Mikal perspective, I mean, he just gave you everything that you wanted. He was bringing the ball down. He was initiating the offense, running pick and roll with him. He was using that to get to the mid range where he was just like scorching hot in this game. So, I think I railed on the mid range from him a little bit recently, being like, hey, for as good as a mid range shot is, like, you got to make them at a really high clip if you want to be more valuable than taking a 3 or getting all the way to the rim. And he made them really valuable in this game. So it's okay to lean into that if a guy's shooting that hot. On top of that, he was shooting from 3 and, made them, was 2 of 4. And still maybe wish there could have been more there. One of them obviously was the game winner. And then, he was getting to the rim too, which I think was completely necessary. Getting him all the way in there and drawing free throws. I mean, I think in this game, what did he end up with? It was actually a respectable amount of free throws, if I'm not mistaken. 5 of 6 from the free throw line and led the team in free throws. Him and OG, both with 6 attempts at the free throw line. Not a ton of free throws drawn by the Knicks overall. Only 20 attempts. They made 14 of them. But yeah, I mean, he kind of led the charge there to getting all the way inside, drawing fouls. You need that out of him. You need that out of someone that's going to be your number one scorer in any given game. And they got it out of Mikal because it was just kind of tougher sledding for Cat out there trying to get inside, draw free throws and stuff like that. So great game for Mikal, and he kind of set the tone early, way early, by having a little talk with Tibs, which he told reporters about. So I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. And Mikal kind of going to bat for his other teammates and trying to get the starter minute load down a little bit and give the guys on the bench a little more of a shot. So let's talk about that in just a sec. But first, I gotta let you know about our friends over at Wayfair, and your home should reflect your style. And with Wayfair, it's easier than ever to make that happen. Whether you're looking for a simple refresh or tackling a big home project, Wayfair has everything you need in one place. Wayfair's huge selection makes it easy to find the perfect piece, no matter your space or budget. From cozy furniture and stylish decor to kitchen essentials and outdoor must-haves, Wayfair has it all, and at prices that fit your budget. And I'll tell you what, finding the perfect piece, that's something I've been doing a lot lately. I don't know if anyone's noticed, but my recording area has changed. Nice blank backdrop right now because I'm in my new office in my new house that my wife and I got recently, and we've been looking for a lot of perfect pieces, and Wayfair has been great for that with being able to give us lots of options, great prices. It's a bigger house that we moved into, so there's a lot more space to fill. Gets expensive after a while. So luckily, with the great stylish options at affordable prices on Wayfair, we've been able to fill things out a bit. So head over to wayfair.com and find something that's just your style today. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. And this is a message from sponsor Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. But now Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return, while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. Also, you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now this is Taxes. Get an expert now at TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live Full Service. Real-time updates only in iOS mobile app. See guaranteed details at TurboTax.com/guarantees. All right, so minutes drama. Let's talk about it. Mikal Bridges, lots of quotes to the media before this game about the grind of the season, about the minutes, about how he had a discussion with Tibs. So let's just go into the direct quotes here. So first quote: "Sometimes it's not fun on the body," Mikal said about the season so far, but you want that as a coach, and also, but you, well, yeah. So he said you want the ability to talk to your coach. So he said, but you want that as a coach and also talk to him a little bit, knowing that we've got a good enough team where our bench guys can come in and we don't need to play 48 minutes, 47 minutes. We've got a lot of good guys on this team that can take away minutes, which helps the defense, helps the offense, helps tired bodies being out there and giving up all these points. It helps just keeping fresh bodies out there. And then he said Tibbs was receptive, but sometimes I think he just gets in his ways. Boy, you know him. Yeah, not even a full season. You know this guy, that's for sure. And then final quote: "I think he's not arguing about it. Sometimes I think he just gets in his ways and he gets locked in. He just wants to keep the same guy out there. Sometimes you've got to tell him, like Landry Shamet, for example, or somebody, keep him out there. They're playing well." And so did it work? Did the talk work with Tibbs? TBD. If you look at the minutes distribution in this one, it still looks pretty starters heavy. But if you consider that the starters pretty much played all of overtime, um, it would have been about 37 minutes for Josh Hart, 38 minutes for OG, 33 for Cat, 33 for Deuce, 35 for Mikal. Three guys on the bench getting between 15 and 20 minutes. Campaign got 15. Mitch and Shamet both got about 20. Precious got 9 minutes. Maybe could have done without those. Led to some pretty horrid spacing, having Hart, Precious, and Mitch out there together at one point. So maybe could deal without that. Maybe that was Mikal's penance for asking for this, having that lineup hit the floor at some point in this one. But I think what Mikal's asking for is pretty reasonable here. Obviously, a lot was made of it going into the game, like people being like, "Oh, Tibbs is going to be spiteful and blah blah blah." Like, why would you bring this up to the media? But it seems obvious that Mikal brought it up to the media after he brought it up to Tibbs. So, hopefully they had a nice conversation beforehand. And then, I didn't see what question Mikal was asked to lead to this response. Like if he was just, I know he's been asked a couple times throughout the season, like, hey, how's the how's the minute load weighing on you? You know, like how's things going with that? Because like you're one of the top minute getters in the league. You never miss games, you know, whatever. And so maybe that's where that ultimately came from. But either way, it seems like he already had the discussion with Tibbs. It's not like he's bringing this up in the media first, you know. So it's not messy that way. Like if he just brought that up and did, I mean, you know, he's a very talented player, but like Anthony Edwards seems to be the dude who it uses the media a lot to be like, you know, hey, I've had this on my mind. Let me just say this to the media, and see what they think, you know, and then, you know, get this out in the open and, you know, whatever that way. It doesn't seem like Mikal did that. You know, he went to Tibbs first. He talked to him. You know, they seem to have talked like adults, and you know, he just kind of made his thoughts known of like, hey, you know, maybe Landry Shamet should be playing a little more, which I think everyone can agree on right now. Like Landry Shamet has been playing really well, so why not give him a little more run? Um, so yeah, I like it. I like that Mikal is kind of stepping up and being like a leader like this, especially with Brunson out. You know, I think that maybe he's just trying to get these things in there now while he is sort of you know, sliding into that leadership role or whatever, or the, you know, the top ball handler scorer role right now. You know, the Knicks kind of need him to be in with Brunson out. I don't know, but either way, I mean, it seems like it worked, right? Like, I mean, he played a slightly more manageable minute load like during the course of the game. You know, like I said, he would have only had about 35 minutes, if not for overtime, and then wound up with 40, thanks to playing OT. But you know, he looked pretty fresh. The shot looked good. You know, maybe what he said paid off like immediately, and let him have a really good game. But yeah, either way, just a good one in general for Mikal here, and you know, I think that I think really good day, top to bottom, when you consider that he affected change from the inside with Tibbs, and then went out and put up a 33-point gem and with a game winner, and kind of proved himself right in that, you know, he was able to stay fresh later and everything else and hit the game winner. So great game for Mikal, great day for Mikal. Cat had a pretty great game as well, if not a little more muted than I would have liked, if I'm being completely honest. He had 21 points, 7 boards, 4 assists, 2 steals, 1 block, shot 8 of 12 from the field, 2 of 4 from 3. And especially late, this was a really complete game for him. I mean, I think if anything, I just wish they would have tried to involve him more, you know, like uh get more pick and pop opportunities for him. I mean, they had Denny Avdia on him for a lot down the stretch of this game. And then they had Klingon on Josh Hart, which I think I've already mentioned. Like it didn't help the spacing too much, you know, to have Hart out there late in this game. He was very tentative with the threes again, and just in general looking kind of uncomfortable. But you know, that did gift you having Avdia on Cat, but which would have helped on the perimeter, but not so much on the inside, considering Klingon was able to kind of hang out down there, play a lot of drop, and generally help off of Hart on the perimeter and not really have to worry about it too much. But, you know, with Cat, we saw late in this game, like he made 2 huge threes, and maybe if they had started going to that a little earlier, that things could have been a little better. But yeah, he made 2 huge ones down the stretch. Got the double bang from Mike Breen, put the Knicks up by 6 with about a minute left. They were like they were tied with Portland going into that. You were really thinking like, oh, this is about to be an ugly final couple minutes. And then Cat makes those 2 shots, and you think, all right, well, this is basically over. You could basically just game manage your way to a win here. And the Knicks, of course, being the Knicks, made it dramatic. You know, let the Blazers get all the way back and tie it. Couldn't win it in regulation, off of a deuce heave at the buzzer, and then you know, had to play through overtime and everything else. But Cat did his work to try to, you know, give the Knicks the win with those 2 huge threes late in this one. Also, great defensive sequence late in overtime for Cat. I mean, I thought that he basically saved the game for the Knicks. I mean, there was a lot of plays that had to save the game. I mean, the Knicks were up 1 for like the final, I don't know, minute or so, against Portland in this one. And, you know, they had to just keep getting defensive stop after defensive stop when they couldn't make another shot on the other end to just push that lead out more than 1 point. And of course, it ended up thanks to a Josh Hart blunder and a tactical blunder by Tibs. The Blazers end up taking that 2 point lead, which then Mikal wins with the three at the buzzer. But they were up 111 to 110 for like it felt like an eternity, and it felt like Portland got a million opportunities at it. But Cat had one of the great defensive sequences of that 111 to 110 sequence there where he bottled up Avdia on the perimeter. Like Avdia got him on the perimeter, thought it was a great matchup, completely bottles him up, gets a block on him. And then the Blazers get their hands on the ball again, get it back inside to Klingon with a short shot clock. And Klingon, you could tell, just wanted to go up with it and didn't think quickly enough to try to pass out. But Cat just straight like walled him into the baseline, stopped him too, got the shot clock violation. It's a phenomenal defensive sequence for Cat. Probably one of my favorite, one of my favorite defensive sequences of the whole season for him so far, because he basically anchored a whole possession. Well, it wasn't a possession and a half because the shot clock never reset, but just a whole possession entirely him, and his defensive efforts made it work for the Knicks. And you love seeing that. So it's nice to see Cat get something going on the other end as well as the offensive end. I want to talk about Deuce McBride, who also had some really nasty defensive plays down the stretch. Talk some OG Anunoby, talk some Josh Hart, and then talk some tactical errors by Tibs to close the show out. So lots more to talk about in just a moment on Locked On Knicks. But first, I got to talk underwear. I got to talk about some Skims. And when I found out Skims was making underwear for men, I was intrigued. I heard so much about their quality from friends and family, so I had to give it a try. And let me tell you, it lives up to the hype. I've always had issues with underwear, fit, comfort, or just finding the right style for me. And Skims changed all that. Their men's line offers something for everyone, from boxer briefs to classic briefs, all designed with the perfect balance of comfort and style. And I've mentioned it before, but I will keep mentioning it. The stretch 3-inch boxer brief has been the go-to for me. I used to be a 5-inch boxer brief kind of guy, but I tried the 3-inch when I got some Skims. I was lucky enough to have them send me some to try for this advertisement. And I'm hooked. I'm hooked on the 3-inch ones. I thought they were going to be too short, but turns out because of how well the Skims are made, they don't ride up at all. So they're great for activity. Like they're great if I play basketball in them or whatever, but also having that shorter inseam makes them more mobile and easier for me to, stretch out and, just feel free to move and whatever, which is great without having them bunch up and get all up in my junk. So I love the stretch 3-inch boxer brief. They've been my absolute favorite. If you want to get some for yourself, definitely do. Take my recommendation. I promise you'll love them. Shop Skims Men's at skims.com/lockedonnba and Skims stores, including their flagship store on Fifth Ave in Manhattan. If you happen to be in the area, let them know we sent you. After you place your order, select podcast in the survey and select our show in the drop-down menu that follows. All right, so let's finish talking through this 114 to 113 win for the Knicks over the Blazers on the road, continuing to make magic happen on the road here. And Deuce McBride, big part of that, 11 points, 5 assists, 4 steals, and 2 blocks in this game. And I mean, he was all over the place, generating steals, generating turnovers, getting the Knicks going in that way. He's as a starter, I mean, he's starting to just look like, in some ways, like a mini OG, and having both of them out there is just such a treat, like to be able to bottle guys up, get the steals and, be able to push and transition and all that. But really the thing that stood out to me from Deuce was just 2 nasty blocks on Scoot Henderson in overtime after Scoot really got going. I mean, I didn't pull up his final stats, but let's just see here real quick in real time. Scoot ended with 30 points in this one. 10 of 16 shooting, 4 of 4 from 3, which is crazy. I was not expecting that out of him, to be completely honest. But just a crazy game for him. I think he's really starting to come around and make good on the promise of, his draft position. But yeah, just a really great game for him. But Deuce bottled him up late in this game. I mean, he was creating advantages just with that strength and the speed and the first step and everything and getting inside and making shots. Also made like kind of a BS bank in three late in regulation, which was part of what allowed this thing to eventually go to overtime. So, whatever. He got a little lucky on one of those 4 for 4 from three, but he was legitimately, I mean, you don't get lucky and score 30 points in the NBA. He was legitimately having a phenomenal game, and Deuce just bottled him up first about midway through overtime, gets a nice block on him as he was driving in, and then right towards the end of the game in overtime, Deuce just gets a block off of him and controls the ball enough to make sure that Scoot was the last one to touch it too, which was huge, and that almost won the game for the Knicks before the tactical disaster class right before the Mikal game winner there. But he blocks Scoot, gets like just enough of a hand on it, and then gets it to go careen off of Scoot's arm also. Really great control, really great block, really great, like, just keeping him, at he kind of like let him think that he had him beat, that Scoot had Deuce beat, and then it just really had a good eye on that ball, and knew that he had a play on it from where Scoot ended up. Also, like, kind of learned like one possession to the next because Scoot had beaten him for a make shortly before that, and then or maybe it ended in free throws, I forget, but either way, Scoot had beaten him like 2 possessions prior, and then Deuce learns from that, adjusts, takes almost the same exact path, but ends up getting the block on him. Just standard, Deuce McBride things. Also had a clutch 3 down the stretch, so just another big game for Deuce in the starting lineup. Didn't have the best shooting numbers overall, but he affects winning a lot. And I think there's a real case for. I know there's some people that are really getting after the idea of like Deuce should replace Hart in the starting lineup. And, Gavin's one of them. And, there's a number of other people that, think like, hey, throw Deuce out there in the starting lineup, bring Hart off the bench. I don't totally disagree, but I think the main thing that we should take away is that Deuce should be closing games a little more, especially if he's playing really well on defense. Like, I think he offers more on defense than Hart does. If you can get enough rebounding out there, then you're in good shape. Like, you can live without having the Hart rebounds for a little bit if you get enough rebounding out there. Granted, they kind of needed more rebounding in this game, so I guess Hart kind of had to be out there. But if you can do it, have Deuce out there because he's going to give you a ton on defense and has that 3-point shooting ability and seems to be pretty clutch with it. I mean, he's made a number of big shots down the stretch, not like game winners, but kind of dagger shots that stagger another team and put the Knicks in position to win. So hopefully we see more of him closing games going forward. OG Anunoby had 23 points, 7 boards, 3 assists. So continuing his stretch of 20 plus point per game scoring, but shot 8 of 20 from the field, 3 of 8 from 3. I thought he was the main guy that maybe got bothered by the interior size of Portland in this one. Maybe you could include Hart in that as well. But I mean, he was trying to do what he's been doing lately and just getting inside and muscling through to finish inside. And it was met with some big bodies a few times, got blocked a couple times. I mean, it was just those were like occasionally he's not going up mega hard, as far as like going up for a huge dunk or whatever. And he did hit a couple dunks in this one, like in transition or whatever, which is great. But sometimes he gets inside and he's trying to just create space and go up for a layup and not get super vertical with it, which I think is smart. I think that it's smart as an NBA player in traffic to not jump too high or, whatever, because I mean, obviously we saw what just happened to Brunson. Like, sometimes in traffic, there's just that much more of a chance of injury, of landing on someone, whatever. So I get that. But, normally OG can kind of get inside, and against most players that aren't like the biggest fives in the league, you create that space that he needs to just get vertical and use that long wingspan to create an easy opportunity for himself for an easy layup inside, and wasn't able to do that quite as much in this one because of guys like Klingon, guys like Dwap Reith, just long, strong guys that were on the inside. So, but all in all, good game for OG. Stretched the floor, made some threes, did his thing. I think he had a good game on the overall. Josh Hart almost had a triple-double, but was not the most useful player down the stretch for the Knicks in this one. 11 points, 11 boards, 9 assists, shot 4 of 14 overall, 2 of 6 from 3. Definitely struggled with the 3-point shot down the stretch, was getting left open. And it was one of those where you could really feel it. Like you could feel that it was bothering him being left that wide open while Klingon was hanging around towards the paint, to prevent any opportunities there and to get rebounds and everything. And I thought that was a good a good tactical move by the Blazers and by Chauncey Billups. And obviously it paid off. I mean, Hart just couldn't really make a perimeter shot down the stretch. It affected the Knicks in the sense that a few of those clanged off, and then it was an opportunity for Portland, and they would make it on the other side. And I felt like you needed better shooting out there down the stretch of this one. And then obviously I've talked about it a few times and not really gone into it, but the huge brain fart of, you had that amazing deuce block on Scoot to, potentially end the game for you. And all you had to do was just inbound the ball, get it to someone, probably have them get fouled, make 2 free throws, go up 3, hopefully win the game, when the Blazers had to scramble with just a few seconds left to try to make a game tying 3. And in the end, Hart almost cost them the game by shuffling his feet on the perimeter, getting called for the moving violation while inbounding the ball, which sometimes you see it called, sometimes you don't, but the rule is the rule. Like you have to abide by that rule and assume that they could call it on you at any time. And Hart kind of pushed his luck. Didn't just take like one little step into the pass or anything. Full on was like took like a double shuffle. It was like the Harden, 4-step step back or whatever, but as a perimeter shuffle to try to get the ball into Mikal Bridges, and got called for it. The Knicks turned it over, led to Denny Avdia getting a made layup, and with the 3.5 seconds left, and then and a foul, so he gets a free throw as well, puts them up by 2, and then obviously leads to Mikal winning it on the other end. So in the end, no harm, no foul. But Josh, maybe don't move your feet. Brunson hilariously roasts him on Twitter afterwards. Goes, "Hey, you got to know the rules, bro," to Josh Hart and tags him. So yeah, I agree. But finally, I think just a little Tibs roasting here. I thought if this was a loss, this episode was going to be mostly about how this was pretty messy tactically for Tibs down the stretch again. Called his final timeout in regulation with 40 seconds left. Could have just not done that and probably been okay. And then still had a timeout left and the ability to challenge a dicey call on Mitchell Robinson on one of the final plays of regulation. That was one of the scoot drives that ultimately led to things getting pushed to overtime, where Mitch just went straight up and, he left his feet a tiny bit, but was vertical, and Scoot just kind of ran into him. Really, really tough to figure out what was a foul in this game. It was just one of those games. So you could have maybe taken that one to review and gotten that turned over, because Mitch did not do any forward motion. He was not moving forward into Scoot at all. He just stood his ground and then, jumped like a couple inches in the air to contest, but it was straight up and down and, straight line. Technically verticality should have probably counted there. I don't think maybe they would have turned that one over, but didn't have the ability to, because Tibbs used his final timeout with 40 seconds left. And then obviously on that Hart inbounds pass, Portland was defending that inbounds well, making it hard for the Knicks to get it to someone. So, if it didn't look like it was working, that's where, if you've got a timeout, maybe call that. Now, obviously he wound up using the timeout on the Mikal 3 to advance the ball, but you could have just called the timeout on the inbounds and then gotten a clean inbounds off, and the game would have been over without needing a 3 from Mikal to end the game. So that was kind of a tactical oversight there. You can see Hart's clearly struggling, and then the second you see him shuffle his feet, I would have like screamed timeout and been like, no, don't let him do this, because that's gonna potentially be a turnover there, and yet didn't do it. So is what it is, I guess. But again, the Knicks won, so this doesn't hit quite as hard, but Tibbs definitely left something to be desired in the tactical department. And then he had Hart in a lot of shooting scenarios late, and the Blazers again were just hiding Donovan Klingon on him and letting Hart shoot, and having Klingon kind of camp out down low, which made life more difficult. He could have gone with a more shooting forward lineup at times to just try to make Portland honest there, but didn't. Maybe that would have changed things too. But either way, I think that's it for this game. Thank you all for listening, and we'll be back with a couple more episodes this week, and we'll talk to you soon. Peace out, everybody.